We talk about more expectations when it comes to the interest rates decision that is anticipated from the Reserve Bank, and now taking a focus as to the effects and impact of those interest rate decisions and hikes that we've seen recently on households as well as expenditure. We are now joined by Bertie, Head of Financial Planning and Advice at Momentum. Bertie, thank you so much for your time. I think let's first unpack the expectation this time around. What would another 25 basis point increase that's expected in South Africa's repo rate mean for consumers who are already stressed? We seem to be experiencing a technical challenge there as we are unable to hear Bertie. But most of what we are going to discuss and deliberate is those expectations ahead of the outcomes of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting. And the Central Bank Governor, Lesotho Kganyago, is expected to address the South African nation at around 3 p.m. this afternoon. Bertie from Momentum back with us to talk about the impact of the subsequent and recent interest rate hikes that we've been seeing in South Africa, and another one expected later today to be announced. Bertie, we were asking you about the initial shock to the South African consumer. Should we get this 25 basis point hike increase, particularly because it comes as yet another consecutive one?
Tumisang, I think everybody's expecting another increase today on the interest rate side. It is going to be even furthering the pressures that our current consumers are under. But I think given the current inflation rate, I think there's no alternative for the Reserve Bank to increase interest rates with another 25 basis points. But I'm not an economist, I'm just speculating. But that will have a significant impact on consumers already under immense pressure from a background perspective and a spending perspective.
Let's paint that picture of the current state of the South African consumer amid the rising cost of living, which increasing interest rates forms part of.
As you rightfully pointed out, I mean, consumers are already struggling to get ends to meet with interest rates rising cost of living. I mean, I don't want to even go into the typical load shedding issues that we've got to have and making provision for those. But I think it's just a general overall escalation of immense cost on the average household in South Africa, and where they actually need to spend their money and the money available to make, not only to meet ends meet, but to also make provision for savings.
Has this also changed spending patterns as well as priorities? Because if one is servicing a mortgage, it's really not one that you would let go in terms of consistently servicing that particular debt or a vehicle. But we have seen that with the numbers that Statistics South Africa has released recently, that there have been defaults because South African consumers are under pressure.
Well, I think it is concerning. I mean, if you look at figures and statistics released by the South African Reserve Bank, that in excess of 75% of disposable income is spent by consumers on debt by repayments. And the issue is once you've reached those type of levels, you actually got no more money other than to pay debt levels and to live off. So you're not making provision for long-term savings or making provision for, I think the basic one, retirement, but not even want to speak about making provision for education for kids that you need to save for. I think it's just ever increasing challenge, and I think it requires consumers to just have a revisit to their basic financials, like looking at their budgets, managing their debt, and being, well, at least to know and be aware of their financial situation.
I'm glad that you raised that, because I was going to ask that we get into what it is that consumers need to be doing in these tough economic times to cushion and make sure that they have head above water.
Coming from the financial services industry, I would miss the opportunity to speak on behalf of the industry. I think there is a perception out there that there's a lot of people that can't assist, but I think the role of a financial advisor, or let me call it a trusted financial advisor with which you can walk a journey, is so critical in these times. I think consumers tend to be very emotional in making decisions on not only on their day-to-day living, but also on their financial matters. And sometimes, as in all sports or in every business, you need a coach to keep you on track. And I think the importance of a valuable financial advisor can keep you on track in making these type of things more objective and rather not be in a subjective sense, but to keep to your long-term goals and have the necessary discipline to actually adhere to those.
Thank you so much for your contribution. Bertie now is with Momentum as he gives advice there ahead of the expected outcomes of the Monetary Policy Committee meeting, and that's where the South African Reserve Bank Governor, Mr. Kganyago, will announce the latest decision on interest rates. That's expected at around 3 p.m. this afternoon.